one moment. I'm sorry.
She's what? Second. Gotcha.
No. Next. No. Nope. One more time. Yes. Okay. So that's, I'd say 15% off.
This is my after.
Yes, ma'am.
Hang on. Can you flip those back on just real quick?
Hold on, Jeff. Let her.
I just want to see what the f-stop difference is.
And then you want to try it again? So take the outside ones.
Okay. I'm just gonna give her the free option.
Understood. Do you want to, Rico? Can you turn off the outside scoop?
What's that? I'm just changing all your settings. Don't worry.
Okay, so that's outside scoop. Scott?
It doesn't work when I get there. That's
Yeah.
Scott, can you,
I
and
just want to see what the f-stop difference is.
okay, so this is down more like a third to be on the stage.
Yeah, let's speed up because this is all my TV.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Somebody just called and said this is.
Did they? So, are they on bars? Can you make sure they're on bars? You're supposed to be on color bars.
No, these aren't on bars. This one's running and recording.
One, two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One, two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, great. I don't know if you see a live shot from where you are. Yeah, it's different configuration of the room. Let's change it up. There you
This
go.
doesn't fit in this box.
We're good. Looks like a radio wall.
I guess that's very fault. I know. Doing around, but I don't have a way to fix it right this second. Try if I can.
Great, thank you.
I'm just gonna leave it off. Seriously, is he booking this one?
Yeah.
John? Hey.
I know you guys know each other well.
Did you?
You're gonna really miss each other.
Hey, John, we fixed your single ID problem. Do you want to switch now? Okay. The tide is coming.
Yes, the tide is coming.
no question, there is so much talk about that special relationship. The president clearly going to great lengths to show that he is at least friendly with the French president. We've seen his full hand throughout the morning. We've seen him smile and laugh. Of course, the White House is essentially rolling out all of the bells and whistles here. Of course, the first state dinner coming later this evening. The Trumps are hosting the Israelis. I think the question is, will there be anything substantive that comes from it? We saw President Trump earlier this morning. Deal. It's unclear if anything substantive will come from this or not in terms of that. Next month, really, the U.S. will decide to run nuclear. What did the president is
That's my brother right here.
Hey, Lester, yeah, plenty for reporters from both countries to be asking Presidents Macron and Trump about here in the East Room. Chief among them, the situation on the Iran nuclear deal. You know that President Macron is here. We're pushing President Trump to stay in. The President, by our indication, wants to get out. We heard the President talk about this in the Oval Office a couple of minutes ago, addressing the situation, saying that the nuclear deal is a terrible thing, I'm paraphrasing here, and additionally, if Iran does, in fact, continue to support a nuclear weapons program, there would be potential on price to pay. So watch for that. I would say another topic to look for in Syria and President Trump will be somebody who's influential with Donald Trump. When it comes to the situation here, whether it's U.S. troops in, for example, you know, just a week and a half ago, we were talking about those airstrikes the U.S. made to France from Syria after the suspected attack. I would not be surprised if this is something that goes into this investment. For other policy considerations, to have a more personal relationship, and that's not like later in the White House. These two men, they're not burdened there last night. You can see where they're on stage, a lot of times better along with their mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the President of the French Republic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Melania and I are truly honored to welcome French President Macron, Mrs. Macron, to the White House. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. We're thrilled that the first official state visit of my presidency is not only with a great friend, but with a leader of America's oldest ally, the Republic of France. Today in our nation's capital, the Stars and Stripes proudly fly alongside the tricolor flag, a symbol of the world and to the world of unity, fraternity, and friendship that forever links our nations together. 40 years after the end of our War of Independence, the great General Lafayette traveled to George Washington's home at Mount Vernon to visit the grave of the father of our country. President Macron, we're deeply moved that nearly 2 centuries later, the President of the Republic of France made that same tribute last night. It was a beautiful evening. Thank you. Thank you very much. This past summer, Melania and I had an incredible visit with you and Brigitte in Paris to celebrate Bastille Day. We were awed by the beauty of your country and the grateful hospitality of your incredible people. They are incredible people. Together, we commemorated the 100th anniversary of America's entry into the First World War. We remembered the French and American patriots who shed their blood together in defense of civilization. Their noble sacrifice will echo through time forever, an immortal tribute to our people and to our freedom. During the horror of the First World War, more than 1 million people were killed or injured from chemical warfare. In the aftermath of that horror, civilized nations came together to ban chemical weapons. 2 weeks ago, following Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad's barbaric use of chemical weapons against his own people, the United States, France, and the United Kingdom joined together to strike at the heart of the Syrian chemical weapons program. These actions were designed to establish a strong deterrent against the use of these heinous weapons. President Macron, I thank you for your leadership in this effort, and it was a well-executed effort at that. And I thank you, the members of the French military, for their courage and their great skill. The United States and France are also cooperating to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We are grateful for France's key partnership in our campaign of maximum pressure on the North Korean regime. As you know, I will soon be meeting with Kim Jong-un as we seek a future of peace, harmony, and security for the whole Korean peninsula, and in fact, for the whole world. However, in pursuit of peace, we will not repeat the mistakes of past administrations. The campaign of maximum pressure will continue. France and the United States also agree that Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and that regime must end its support of terrorism. All over, no matter where you go in the Middle East, you see the fingerprints of Iran behind problems. I also want to thank President Macron for France's vital contribution to our very successful campaign against ISIS. As we drive these ISIS killers from Syria, it is essential that the responsible nations of the Middle East step up their own contributions to prevent Iran from profiting off the success of our anti-ISIS effort. Very rich countries are in the Middle East. They have to make major contributions. They have not been doing it as they should. A major topic that we discussed a little while ago. They have to step up tremendously, not a little bit, but tremendously, their financial effort. Mr. President, on behalf of the American people, I again express our solidarity in the wake of the terrorist attack in southern France last month. I share the confidence you conveyed at the memorial service for the heroic Colonel Beltram, that in time we will achieve the ultimate triumph of right and of justice. In the fight against terrorism, we both know that we must be strong from within to defend ourselves from threats outside. We will do what we must to protect our countries. You are our oldest ally, and you are truly one of our great allies, and we appreciate it. We will always be there for you. Both the United States and France are dealing with a challenge that has gone on for a long, long time. It's uncontrolled migration. In the United States, we are taking strong action to regain control over our borders and over our sovereignty. It's gone on for too long, and we've slowed it down very substantially, but we're going to stop illegal immigration. I know that you face similar challenges in France, and Mr. President, I admire the leadership you have shown in addressing them in a very honest and direct fashion, and not always popular. Both of our elections owe much of the success to the desire of everyday citizens to be heard, to be listened to, and to have control over their own nations and their own futures. Let us demonstrate through our partnership that the voice of the people will always reign. At all times, it will reign. During our meetings today, we also discussed the robust economic relationship between our countries. The United States is setting records in business, and we will continue. And I know that France will be setting records under your leadership very soon. We look forward to exploring increased opportunities for bilateral trade and investment based on the principle of fairness and, importantly, reciprocity. Mr. President, thank you again for accepting our invitation to the White House. It's been such an honor. The foundation of our friendship draws from the deepest wells of civilization and is sustained by our people's love of their history, culture, and liberty. For 2 centuries, the alliance between France and the United States has been the cornerstone of freedom. Now the strength of this mighty alliance is in our hands, linked together by fate and destiny. I am confident that our future has never, ever looked brighter. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald.
Please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, cher Donald.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Merci à vous et à votre épouse Melania pour votre accueil.
And to the
Et je veux
First
vous dire
Lady
combien
for your warm
nous sommes
welcome.
heureux avec
Please allow me to tell you how
l'ensemble de la
pleased we are
délégation
together
française
with my
d'être,
wife
durant ces
Brigitte
3
and
jours,
the
vos
whole of the
invités
French delegation. How
après,
pleased we are to be your guests for 3
formidable
days
visite
after this
et
wonderful
l'honneur que
visit
vous nous aviez fait d'être
and
présents
the
pour le 14 juillet
honor you
dernier
made.
à Paris.
You made it by attending
Vous avez rappelé, Monsieur le Président, et
Bastille
dans nos
Day
2
in
adresses
Paris.
tout à l'heure, nous l'avons l'un et l'autre fait, l'importance et la profondeur des liens qui
speeches
nous
earlier
unissent.
today, we referred
Ces
to
liens
the
remontent
deep
à la
and
constitution même
ancient
de votre
bonds
pays,
between our 2 countries.
à
These
sa
go back
révolution
to
fondatrice et ont jalonné notre histoire.
founding revolution of your
Ce sont
country
des
and have
liens
been true
basés sur nos intérêts réciproques et
both our
notre
histories.
attachement profond à la liberté
These
et la
bonds
paix.
are based upon our
À chaque
deep
fois que
attachment
celles-ci ont
to
été
freedom and
menacées,
peace. Each
nous avons
time
toujours
they
été
have been
là l'un pour
threatened, we stood
Et
by
nous
one
l'avons
another.
célébré ensemble hier soir tous les
And
4 en
we
nous rendant en effet à Mount
celebrated
Vernon.
that last night, the 4 of us,
Nul
by
autre, mieux que
going to
George
Mount
Washington pouvait
Vernon,
illustrer
given
la
that
force
no one
de
else
ces liens
could
et
illustrate
de l'engagement
as
de
well as George
nos 2
Washington
pays.
the strength of the commitment
Vous
and
avez
the
parfaitement
bonds
rappelé,
between our 2
Monsieur le Président, à
countries.
l'instant tous les enjeux. Je veux peut-être ici revenir
Mr.
sur quelques-uns
President,
des sujets essentiels pour la relation bilatérale et au-delà.
Please allow
Le
me to go
premier,
back
c'est
to a
Lyon.
number of issues which are
Vous avez
fundamental
rappelé
for
tout à l'heure très
not only
clairement
our
devant la
relationship
presse,
but
et vous venez
beyond.
de le
The first
faire,
topic is
quelles
Iran.
étaient vos positions
You
de
said
campagne et
once
quelles
again in
étaient vos
front of the
positions
press what your
en tant que
position
dirigeant
was during the
des
campaign
États-Unis d'Amérique
and
sur
as
ce
well as
sujet.
the President of the United
Il n'y a pas de
States.
mystère pour dire que nous n'avons pas les mêmes positions de
There's-
départ.
It's not
Sur ce
a
point,
mystery. We
et
did not have the
ni vous
same
ni moi n'avons
starting
pour
positions,
tempérament ou
stances,
habitude de
and
changer
neither
de
you
position
nor I
avec le
have a
gré du vent.
habit of changing
Néanmoins, nous avons
our
eu,
stances
je crois
or going
pouvoir le
with the
dire,
wind.
une discussion
That being
très
said, I can
approfondie en
say
tête-à-tête
that
sur
we've
ce
had
sujet.
very frank discussions.
Vous considérez
discussion
que
on that, just the
le
2 of
deal
us. You
iranien,
consider
JCPOA,
that
donc
the
l'accord
Iranian deal, the
qui a été
JCPOA,
négocié en
the
2015
one
avec
negotiated
l'Iran
in
est un mauvais
2015
accord.
with Iran, is a bad deal.
Depuis plusieurs mois, je dis que ça n'est
For
pas
a
un
number of
accord
months, I've been
suffisant,
saying that this was
mais qu'il nous
not a
permet en tout
sufficient
cas
deal, but that it
d'avoir jusqu'en
enabled us,
2025
at least
un
until
contrôle sur les activités
2025,
nucléaires.
to have some control over
Nous
their
souhaitons
nuclear
donc
activities.
pouvoir désormais
We
travailler
therefore
sur
wish from
un
now on
nouvel
to
accord.
work on a new
avec
deal
l'Iran.
with Iran.
Ce dont nous avons besoin.
What we
Et
need,
je crois que là-dessus,
and
notre
I believe
discussion a
that on
permis
that, our discussions
d'éclairer pleinement ce choix et cette convergence de vues.
allowed
C'est
us
de
to shed
couvrir
light
4 sujets
on our
essentiels. Le premier,
convergence of
c'est
views, is that
de
we need to
bloquer
cover
toute
4
activité
topics. The
nucléaire
first one
de
is
l'Iran
to
jusqu'en 2025.
block
C'est ce
any
que seul
nuclear activity
permettait
of
de faire
Iran
le
until
JCPOA.
2025. This was
Le deuxième, c'est de nous assurer
feasible
qu'à
thanks
plus
to
long
the
terme, il n'y ait pas
JCPOA. The
d'activité
second is
nucléaire
to make
iranienne.
sure that in the long run there is no nuclear
troisième
Iranian
sujet
activity.
essentiel,
The third
c'est de pouvoir stopper
fundamental
les
topic
activités
is to be able
balistiques
to
de
put
l'Iran
an
dans la
end
région.
to the ballistical
Et le
activities
quatrième
of
point
Iran in the
essentiel,
region.
c'est
And
de
the fourth
créer
one
les conditions d'une
is
stabilité
to
politique dans la région et donc de mieux
generate
contenir
the
la
conditions
domination
for
iranienne et ses positions en Irak, en
solution,
Iran,
political
au
solution
Yémen,
to
comme
contain
l'influence qu'elle a
Iran in
sur
the
le Liban.
region, in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq,
Sur ces
and in
sujets,
Lebanon.
j'ai une position
On
constante
these
qui était de dire
topics,
que nous devions
I did not change.
justement trouver le
I
cadre
constantly said that we needed to find
pour
the
ensemble,
framework so that
avec les
together
puissances de la région,
and with the powers
avec
of the region
les dirigeants iraniens,
and with
réussir à
the
trouver un
Iranian
accord.
leaders manage to
Je souhaite
find a
donc que nous
deal.
puissions nous engager sur cette
I
voie.
therefore would
dans
like us
les
to
semaines
commit
et les
to that
mois à venir.
effect in the weeks and months to
Cette
come.
voie est la seule qui
This is
permette
the only
la
way
stabilité.
to bring about
La
stability.
France n'a aucune naïveté à l'égard
France is not
de l'Iran.
naive when
Nous
it
avons
comes to
aussi
Iran.
un grand respect pour
We have also a lot of respect
le peuple
for the
iranien qui,
Iranian people,
à travers son histoire, a montré toujours sa force.
which
Et nous
through
ne voulons
their
pas
history,
répliquer
its
les
history
erreurs du
always
passé.
has always shown its
À chaque
strength.
fois
But
que
we do
nous
not
avons voulu nous
repeat
substituer
the mistakes
à la
of the
souveraineté
past.
d'un peuple,
Each
de manière
time we
unilatérale,
tried
nous avons
to
créé encore plus de
unilaterally
terreur.
replace the sovereignty of
Et je tiens à ces
people,
lignes
we've brought about
importantes.
some more.
Mais nous voulons pour nos alliés la
Terror.
stabilité durable. Et donc,
But for our
je crois que la
allies, we
discussion
want
que nous avons
sustainable
eue ensemble
stability. And I
permet
believe that the
en tout cas
discussions we've
d'ouvrir
had together
la voie de ce nouvel accord
make it
qui
possible
me paraît indispensable, sur
to
lequel
open
nous
the way,
allons
to pave the way
travailler,
for a
sur
new
lequel nous
agreement,
souhaitons
an agreement on
associer,
which we will
au-delà de
work,
l'ensemble des partenaires
and
européens,
beyond our
les
European partners, we
puissances
would
de la
like to
région
involve the regional powers,
et évidemment
and of
la
course,
Russie
Russia
et la Turquie.
and Turkey.
C'est dans ce cadre d'ailleurs que
It
nous
is
pourrons,
also
dans la durée,
within this
ensemble,
framework, as a matter of fact, that
construire une solution
together,
à la
in the long
situation
run,
en
we
Syrie.
can find a solution
En
to
Syrie, nous
the
sommes
Syrian
engagés
situation. In Syria,
conjointement au sein
we
d'une
are
coalition internationale contre
together
Daesh et les
engaged
terroristes.
within the international
Nous continuerons à
coalition
œuvrer
against Daesh
jusqu'au
and the
bout
terrorists, and we
dans
will
ce
continue
cadre
to
et
act
jusqu'à la
till the
victoire.
end within this
Néanmoins,
framework until
il nous
victory.
faut dans la
That
durée
being said,
gagner la paix
in the long
et
run,
donc éviter
we
que la
need to
Syrie ne
win
tombe sur
peace and
quelque
make sure
hégémonie
that
ou partition
Syria
que
does
ce soit
not
dans la région.
fall into
Et
any
pour ce faire,
hegemony
cette approche
in the
que
region.
nous venons d'acter
So
ensemble
to that effect,
permet
the
d'inclure
approach
la
which is
situation syrienne dans le cadre
agreed means
de ce travail
we can work
sur l'ensemble de la région que nous devons conduire.
and work
donc,
on
dans ce
all of the
pilier de-
situation, the whole of the situation in the region.
régional de l'Iran.
And with
En Syrie,
these
nous allons
efforts
continuer à œuvrer ensemble
to
au sein du
contain
Conseil de
Iran
sécurité
in the region.
pour nous assurer
We will
que
continue to
le
work
droit
to that
international
effect
humanitaire,
within the
l'interdiction
UN Security
d'utilisation des armes
Council
chimiques sont
to make
pleinement
sure that
respectées. Et
humanitarian
nous
law,
prendrons, comme nous l'avons
the
fait il y a quelques
prohibition
jours,
of chemical
nos
weapons are
responsabilités.
fully complied
Mais
with,
nous allons
and
désormais
we will
aussi
continue
œuvrer
to shoulder
avec,
our
nos
responsibilities to that
partenaires sur ce
effect.
sujet à
But we will
construire
also work
une
with our
solution
partners
politique
in
durable,
building a sustainable
inclusive,
political
qui évitera toute
solution,
hégémonie,
an inclusive
qui
one that will
évitera,
prevent any
là aussi, de
hegemony,
nourrir le
and once
terrorisme à
again
venir.
will prevent
Nous
feeding
avons,
terrorism
au-delà de ces sujets,
in
évoqué
the
ensemble
future.
le climat.
We also talked
Là
about
aussi, nous connaissons
the climate,
nos désaccords.
and
La France
here
continuera à
also
travailler sur
we
des textes
know
importants comme
where
le
we
pacte mondial
stand.
sur
France will
l'environnement,
continue
mais
to work on major
on va pouvoir dire
pieces,
que nous
including
souhaitons,
the Global
que
Compact for the Environment.
secteur
But I think I can
d'économie,
say that our
nos chercheurs
economic
puissent continuer à travailler sur des solutions
our businesses,
concrètes en
our
la matière.
researchers can continue
Et
to work on
nous sommes l'un
concrete
et l'autre
solutions in the
attachés
field,
à ce point.
and we
Enfin, sur
are
le
both
commerce,
attached to that.
vous l'avez évoqué,
Now on trade,
je me retrouve dans la formule
like
qui a été la
you
vôtre
mentioned it,
d'avoir
and
un
I
commerce
hear what you
juste
said
et
when you call
équitable.
upon
Nous avons aujourd'hui, quand on
fair
regarde le
and
commerce
equitable
international,
trade. When we look
des
at
défis
international
conjoints.
trade today, we have
Il y a
some
des
common
surcapacités
challenges. There are
dans
also
certains
the
secteurs qui sont
capacities
bien
in a
connus.
number of sectors which
Nous
are
devons œuvrer
well
ensemble
known,
pour
and we
éviter
shall
qu'elles
work
ne
together
déstabilisent nos
to make
marchés
sure that this
ou ne
does
créent
not
une concurrence
destabilize our
déloyale.
markets or brings about some
Mais
unfair
je
competition.
crois pouvoir dire que nous sommes
But I
l'un et
believe
l'autre
we can
attachés
say that we
à
are
ce
both
qu'entre
attached
alliés, il y ait le
to
respect
make
du
sure
droit
that
international
between
commercial.
allies there is
En tout cas, la France
compliance
y est
with
attachée. Nous
international
avons
trade
nos
law.
préférences
At least France is attached to that.
collectives
We have
réciproques. Nous avons des situations que nous pouvons
preferences.
sans doute
There are
améliorer.
situations we can probably
Mais
improve.
je crois que l'un et l'autre, nous
But I
sommes aussi
believe that
attachés à ce que
both you and I
nos entreprises,
also attached
nos milieux d'affaires puissent travailler
want to make
sereinement
sure that our
dans un cadre
businesses,
clair et de long
our
terme.
companies
auquel j'y suis
can operate
profondément
in a
attaché.
long,
Voilà, Monsieur le Président, en
sustainable
complément
and stable
des quelques points
framework.
que vous avez
Mr.
cités, des sujets sur
President,
lesquels je souhaitais revenir
I meant
et
to
vous redire combien
mention these few points
les
which
discussions que nous
you
avons
commented as well.
aujourd'hui, celles que
And
nous
allow
aurons
me to
demain,
say once again that the discussions
nourrissent
we've
tout à
had
la
today, the
fois
ones we will have
de
tomorrow,
la force
are
de ces
fed
liens
not only
historiques
by the strength
nous
of our
obligent et nous
historical bonds,
et d'une amitié sincère
but also
que je crois
by a
nous
sincere
partageons. Merci
friendship,
encore, Monsieur le
which I
Président,
believe we share.
Madame,
So thank
pour,
you once again, Mr.
ce
President,
formidable
Madam,
accueil. Merci
for
ces 3
this
jours passés
extremely
parmi
warm
vous.
welcome, for these
Et merci,
3 days spent with
également
you.
de souhaiter être au
And
rendez-vous des défis
thank
collectifs
you as well
que
for
nous avons à
being
relever,
there
sont importants
to
pour les États-Unis
meet the
d'Amérique,
challenges
sont
which are
importants pour
important for the
la
United
France
States of
et
America
l'Europe.
for France and for Europe and important for all peoples. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like him a lot. First of all, I want to thank I want to thank our Vice President and Karen for being here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We had a wonderful conference today, and I think especially the one-on-one in the Oval Office, we covered a lot of territory having to do with trade, having to do with Iran, and various other subjects. So I think a lot of good things are going to come out of our meeting, and I appreciate you being here. And we'll take a couple of questions. How about Jeff Mason from Reuters? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi there. After your discussions today with President Macron, what is your thinking about a timeline for bringing U.S. troops out of Syria? And on one other topic, you mentioned today that you thought the leader of North Korea has behaved openly and honorably. This is someone who many people have accused of starving his people, killing family members. What did you mean when you called him that?
Well, we will start with your second part of the question, and I hope that we will be able to deal in a very open and honorable fashion with North Korea. I started a process, and when I did, everybody thought I was doing it absolutely wrong. But in the meantime, for 25 years, people have been dealing and nothing happened. And a lot's happening right now. I can tell you that, Jeff. A lot is happening. And I think it's going to be very positive. And I hope it's going to be very positive for North Korea and for South Korea and Japan and the rest of the world. But I am starting at a level that, frankly, I shouldn't have had to start. This should have been worked out a long time ago. This should have been worked out many years ago. We were discussing that. We shouldn't be having this situation happen to the United States and the world. This should have been resolved by other presidents and by other leaders of other countries a long time ago. With that being said, I think we're doing very well. Meetings are being set up. And I want to see denuclearization of North Korea. A lot of concessions have already been made. We have made no concessions, despite some of the media saying that I've made concessions. I haven't even discussed the concession, other than the fact that meeting is a great thing. And I'm sure that a lot of other people would have liked to have had the position we're having. I will say this, we put the strongest sanctions on a country that we ever have put on any country by far. China, President Xi has been very strong in helping us to solve this problem, in his case at the border. He's allowing very little to get through. I think he's doing that for a number of reasons. We have a very good relationship, and also it's very important in terms of trade, because I do play the trade card. If you look at what's happening with trade in China, it hasn't been fair for many, many years to the United States, and we're going to solve that problem. In fact, we're having Secretary Mnuchin and a couple of other folks heading over to, Bob Lighthizer, heading over to China at the request of China. They came here, as you know, last week, and we're having very substantive discussions on trade. But I think it all plays to the border and the fact that they have been extremely strong on the border, and very little has gotten through, much to the surprise of a lot of people. And I believe the trade will work out, but I also think that China has never treated us with more respect than they have over the last short period of time that I'm president. I have a very excellent, as you know, relationship with President Xi, and I think that relationship is very important as to what's happening with North Korea. So the end result is we'll see. Maybe good things will happen, and maybe we're all wasting a lot of time. But hopefully it'll be good for everybody concerned. As far as Syria is concerned, I would love to get out. I'd love to bring our incredible warriors back home. They've done a great job. We've essentially just absolutely obliterated ISIS in Iraq and in Syria. And we've done a big favor to neighboring countries, frankly, but we've also done a favor for our country. With that being said, Emmanuel and myself have discussed the fact that we don't want to give Iran open season to the Mediterranean, especially since we really control it to a large extent. We really have controlled it, and we've set control on it. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to be coming home relatively soon. We've finished at least almost our work with respect to ISIS in Syria, ISIS in Iraq, and we have done a job that nobody has been able to do. But with that being said, I do want to come home, but I want to come home also with having accomplished what we have to accomplish. So we are discussing Syria as part of an overall deal. When they made the Iran deal, What they should have done is included Syria. When I say should have, before giving them Iran $150 billion and $1.8 billion in cash, $1.8 million in cash. You think about this. Before giving this kind of tremendous money, okay, $150 billion and $1.8 billion in cash, in barrels, I hear it was taken out, and in boxes it was taken out, cash. They should have made a deal that covered Yemen, that covered Syria, that covered other parts of the Middle East where Iraq is involved, where Iran is involved. They didn't do that. So we want to come home. We'll be coming home, but we want to have a very, very strong, we want to leave a strong and lasting footprint, and that was a very big part of our discussion. Okay? Thank you.
Just a follow-up, if I may, sir. On North Korea, you said you believe in complete denuclearization. What does that mean exactly?
It means they get rid of their nukes. Very simple. They get rid of their nukes, and nobody else would say it. It'd be very easy for me to make a simple deal and claim victory. I don't want to do that. I want them to get rid of their nukes.
And for President Macron, the president referred earlier in your meetings in the cabinet room to a potential deal between the two of you on Iran. Can you give us a sense of what that might be? And are you confident that you'll have assurances from President Trump that the European Union will be excluded from tariffs on steel and aluminum?
Look, as for the second question, is it the president to answer? But I just want here on the trade issue to be very clear. When you look at the trade issue between our two countries, they are balanced. There is no unbalanced relationship. Second, we are following and respecting the WTO rules because we are the one who contributed to the creation of the WTO, and we think it makes sense to respect the rule you decided to create. In general, in life, that's a good method. Third, because I do believe that we have a very first issue on trade, which is overcapacities in steel and aluminum. It doesn't come from Europe and not even from France. And it's good to work together when you are allies, and especially when you work so closely together on security issue like Iran and Syria. So I'm confident about the future of the trade relationship, as I think it's part of a broader picture where our interests are totally aligned. As for the Iranian situation, and I think I detailed in my introduction, for me, the key pillars of this new approach we want to adopt. And it's exactly what President Trump said. We have nuclear on the short run. We have nuclear on the long run. We have ballistic activity. We have regional presence of Iran. We want to fix the situation for these four pillars. Syria is part of the fourth one. And what we have to work on, obviously with Iran and the different parties in the region, the P5 and our allies, is to find a fair deal where we can fix the overall situation. This is the only way to preserve sovereignty in the region and to build peace on the very long run. Otherwise, we will have to come back in the region because of new terrorist groups, for sure. And I'm very happy about the discussion we had together, because we raised very new issues and very new solutions together, and especially the fact that the Syrian crisis and the Syrian situation should be part of this broader picture. And the fact that we are here, and we are today in Syria, together as the international coalition against ISIS, but tomorrow we will have to find a way to fix the situation from a political point of view, not automatically from a military point of view, which means to set up a series of agreements, part of this big deal, in order to be sure that Syria tomorrow will be a sovereign country with inclusiveness and free people in a situation to decide for the future. This is very important, and that's our duty.
And I think we will have a great shot at doing a much bigger, maybe deal, maybe not deal. We're going to find out, but we'll know fairly soon. Mr. President?
Une question de la presse. française.
Bonjour, Laurence Benamou, Agence France Presse pour la presse française. À votre arrivée, Monsieur le Président, vous disiez qu'il n'y avait pas de plan B,
Mr. President, you were saying that there
qu'il
was
fallait
no
maintenir
plan
l'accord
B,
avec l'Iran.
that
Maintenant, vous annoncez un
the
nouvel accord qui doit être négocié avec
Iran
l'Iran.
deal was to
Alors,
be
question,
preserved. Now you're talking about a new deal with Iran. Why did you
à la
change your
forte
mind?
préconise votre ami
Did you
Trump,
join
par
the
pragmatisme,
strong
faute de
approach
pouvoir le convaincre.
suggested by
Et par
President
ailleurs,
Trump?
les autres signataires de
Is it
l'accord
because you could not
seront
convince
d'après
him?
vous,
And in
d'accord pour
addition,
suivre
do you
cette
think the
décision?
other who signed the agreement, the
Il
deal,
m'arrivait de dire qu'il n'y
will
avait pas de
follow
plan B,
you?
c'était plus souvent pour la planète que pour
When
l'Iran.
I say there is no
Je
plan
confirme
B,
qu'il n'y a
I
pas
usually
de
refer to
planète
the
B.
fact that there is
Pour
no
l'Iran, si vous avez
B
suivi
planet.
l'intégralité des prises
It
de
was
position
about
que
climate rather
j'ai
than
tenues, elles sont
Iran.
parfaitement cohérentes avec
Rather,
ce que je viens de dire.
no, regarding
Je vous renvoie
Iran,
d'ailleurs
I've
à ce que
always
j'ai pu dire
been
devant l'Assemblée générale des
coherent,
Nations
and
Unies en
you
septembre
can
dernier,
go back to what I
qui
said
était
at the
exactement de
UN
dire qu'il y avait le
General
JCPOA, mais qu'il
Assembly
devait
in
être complété
September. I
par 3 piliers
always said
additionnels,
that there was the
le post
JCPOA, but we
2025, le
needed to
balistique
add 3
et
pillars.
l'influence
Post-2025,
régionale.
the ballistic issue and the
Je ne sais
regional
pas la décision que prendra le
influence.
président
I do
Trump
not know
sur le
what
JCPOA.
President Trump will decide regarding the
C'est sa
JCPOA, and it
responsabilité.
is his responsibility.
Le JCPOA,
The
c'est le
JCPOA
premier pilier
is the first pillar
de cet ensemble que je viens de décrire.
this
Donc,
framework I
je
just
ne suis pas en train de
described.
dire qu'on passe
So
d'un
I'm
accord à
not
l'autre.
saying
Je
that
suis en
we're
train de dire
moving from one
c'est
deal
un des
to
aspects du
another.
problème.
I'm saying it is
Je n'ai jamais été
one
aussi critique que le
aspect
président
of the
Trump sur le
problem.
JCPOA
I
parce que
haven't,
je pense qu'on peut
I've
le
never been
compléter
as
utilement.
critical of
Mais
the
quelle que soit la
JCPOA
décision
as
à venir
President
du
Trump
président
has,
Trump,
because I
et s'il
believe that we
venait
can
à
usefully add to
décider
it.
d'en sortir,
But no matter
je
the
souhaite que dès
decision
à présent,
that
nous
President
puissions
Trump
travailler
will
sur un nouvel accord
take,
dont
I
les
would
4
like us
piliers seraient
to
justement
work
ce
as
qui est
from now
aujourd'hui
on a
traité
new
par
deal
le
with
JCPOA,
4 pillars,
c'est-à-dire
including what is
l'activité
already
nucléaire actuelle,
covered by the
l'activité
JCPOA, that is
nucléaire
ongoing
post-2025,
nuclear,
la
the
situation
current
régionale et
nuclear
l'activité
activities,
balistique.
the
Il n'y a donc pas de changement
long
du point de
run
vue du
nuclear
tout, mais une
activities,
grande
the
constance.
ballistic activities,
Mais
and
nous
the
avons
regional
pu, ces
influence.
dernières
So
semaines et
this
tout
is
particulièrement
constant.
aujourd'hui,
But over the
aller au
past
bout
few
d'une
weeks
discussion
and in particular today,
indispensable
we've been able
sur
to
la
go
situation de la région.
to very much talk
Et je
in
crois que
details about
nous
this
avons
topic, including the
convergé
situation
en
in the region.
particulier
And
sur
I
une
believe that
lecture
we've
commune de ce qui se
converged
passe
on a common
en
reading
Syrie,
of what
au
is
Yémen,
happening in
en
Syria,
Irak
in
tout
Yemen,
particulièrement,
in Iraq in
et du
particular.
fait que
And
le sujet
on the
nucléaire n'est
fact
pas le seul.
that the nuclear issue is not the only one.
Qu'il y a bien un problème avec
That
l'activité
indeed there
balistique
is a
iranienne et
problem
la présence
with the
de
ballistical
l'Iran
activity
dans
of
plusieurs
Iran
régions de la
and their
région,
presence
et
in
que
a
notre
number of
volonté
countries
était
in
bien
the
de créer les
region,
conditions
and that our
de
willingness
stabilité
was
dans la région.
indeed to set the conditions
À
for the
partir du
stability
moment
of the
où on
region.
a construit cette convergence
Once
de vues,
we've built this
l'idée d'aller vers un
convergence
nouvel
of
accord qui
view,
permette
the idea
d'inclure
of moving on
justement le
to a
règlement en
new
particulier
deal that
du sujet
would
syrien
include
me semble être une
the
avancée
solution
forte
for Syria,
de
I
l'échange que
believe
nous avons eu
is a
aujourd'hui.
strong
Je
step
souhaite donc que nous
forward
puissions travailler avec
thanks
l'ensemble
to the
de nos
discussions we've
partenaires.
had today. So
Nous
I very
avons
much would like us
constitué,
to
et nos ministres
work
des
together
Affaires
with all of our
étrangères
partners
les ont réunis
and
d'ores et déjà et les réuniront à nouveau dans quelques
ministers
jours.
of
On a appelé
foreign
le small
affairs
group,
already
dont
gathered
l'objectif
the
est
small
justement
group
sur
and
la
they will be
Syrie
doing
de
it again
réunir les
anytime
puissances
soon.
alliées
The purpose is to have some
dont nous sommes
the
partis évidemment, mais avec les
allied
puissances
powers and
de
we'll
la région.
amongst them
Je crois que nous
and
devons travailler à
of
l'échelle
course
de ce
also the
small
regional
group.
powers
Nous
to
devons
work at the level
évidemment
of
avoir une
this small
discussion assez
group.
privilégiée avec la
We'll
Turquie et
still
la Russie
shall have some
sur
privileged
des sujets
discussions with
régionaux
Russia
et
and
sur les
Turkey
sujets
on
syriens.
regional
Et donc
topics
nous allons
including
maintenant
Syria.
élaborer cette
So as
méthode
from now
pour
we
aller vers un
will
nouvel accord.
work
Là où je
using
pense
that
qu'il y a une vraie
method
avancée
in favor
qui permet de
work
concilier nos
towards a
vues et leurs
deal.
différences,
I believe we can both
c'est que
combine
nous ne restons pas dans un espace vide.
our common views and our
Je me suis toujours
differences
exprimé
because we
clairement
are
contre une
not in a
sortie sèche du JCPOA.
vacuum. I always
L'idée
said
de dire
vacuum.
on déchire le JCPOA
I always said we should
pour
not
aller vers
tear apart
rien
the
d'autre
JCPOA
ne me paraît pas être une
and
bonne
have
solution.
nothing else. I think this
À
would
partir
be
du moment où nous
would
nous
not
mettons
be
dans
a
une
good
dynamique
solution.
qui consiste à
But
construire
once we
un
are
accord
placing
large
ourselves
qui
in a
traite des
momentum,
quatre
the
sujets
purpose of which
fondamentaux que
is
je viens
to
d'évoquer,
put together a
la chose
broad
est
agreement
profondément
covering the
différente. Elle
four
permet
topics I
d'intégrer
just mentioned. It's very different because,
les
first of all,
préoccupations
we can
américaines et les
take on
critiques faites
board
par le
the
président Trump à
concerns
l'égard
and the
de cet accord
criticism
qui, je le
of
rappelle, a
President Trump
initialement
regarding
été
this deal,
poussée par les
which,
États-Unis
like I
d'Amérique,
said,
mais une autre
once again,
administration,
this
elle permet de
deal was
prendre en considération nos préoccupations de la région et je crois
supported by
l'intérêt
former
de tous nos
American
alliés.
administration and
Et cette
previous
grammaire
American administration.
de la vie des affaires internationales qui est que nous souhaitons
We can
respecter la
work-
souveraineté des États de la région. Et nous ne nous mettons pas dans une
it is also
situation
about
qui
respecting the
consiste
sovereignty
à faire de
of
l'intervention à
the
tout va, mais
states of the
plutôt à
region. It's not
construire
about
un cadre
intervening,
stable qui
no matter
va
what. It is rather
protéger nos
about
intérêts,
building
construire la
a
paix.
stable framework
C'est ça, je crois, la grande
that will
différence et la
contribute to
nouveauté de
stability and to
ce vers quoi nous avons convergé
building.
aujourd'hui.
And I
On
think
ne
this is
déchire pas un accord pour
what
aller
we've
vers nulle
been
part. On construit un
agreeing
nouvel
upon
accord qui
today.
est plus
It's
large
not about
et qui
tearing
permet
apart
de
an
prendre
agreement
l'ensemble de nos
and
propositions.
have nothing, but it's about building something new that will cover all of our concerns.
And if I might add, they states, and as I alluded to, that in countries that are in the area, some of which are immensely wealthy, would not be there except for the United States and to a lesser extent France. But they wouldn't be there except for the United States. They wouldn't last a week. We are protecting them. They have to now step up and pay for what's happening. Because I don't think France or the United States should be liable for the tremendous cost. The United States is embarrassingly into the Middle East as of a few months ago, as you've heard me say before, and I don't take responsibility, but I would be very embarrassed if I had to, $7 trillion. And when we want to build, Mr. President, our infrastructure, everybody says, oh, we want to be careful with our money. When we want to fix a highway or we want to build schools and lots of other things, tunnels, bridges, they say, oh, let's be careful with our money. And yet we have spent $7 trillion in the Middle East, and we've gotten nothing for it, nothing, less than nothing, as far as I'm concerned. That's over an 18-year period. The countries that are there, that you all know very well, are immensely wealthy. They're going to have to pay for this. And I think the President and I agree very much on that. And they will pay for it. They will pay for it. We've spoken to them. They will pay for it. The United States will not continue to pay. And they will also put soldiers on the ground, which they're not doing. And we will, in fact, bring lots of people home. We will have a strong blockage to the Mediterranean, which to me is very important. Because if we don't, you have Iran going right to the Mediterranean. Not going to have that. But there is a chance, and nobody knows what I'm going to do on the 12th, although, Mr. President, you have a pretty good idea. But we'll see. But we'll see also if I do what some people expect, whether or not it will be possible to do a new deal with solid foundations, because this is a deal with decayed foundations. It's a bad deal. It's a bad structure. It's falling down. Should have never, ever been made. I blame Congress. I blame a lot of people for it. But it should have never been made. And we're going to see what happens on the 12th. But I will say, if Iran threatens us in any way, they will pay a price like few countries have ever paid. Okay? Yes, John, please. John Roberts of Fox.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for President Macron as well, but if I could to you, sir, first. Your nominee to run the Veterans Affairs Administration, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, has run into some serious political headwinds on Capitol Hill with some serious allegations being leveled at him. I'm wondering what you know of those allegations, and do you intend to stand behind him?
Well, I haven't heard of the particular allegations, but I will tell you he's one of the finest people that I have met. And I think, speaking for Melania also, he's been the doctor for President Obama, I believe for President Bush, for me. I've gotten to know him pretty well. He's a great doctor. And it was a suggestion. Now, I know there's an experience problem because lack of experience, but there's an experience problem. The Veterans Administration is very important to me. We've done a great job with it, as you know, with the Accountability Act and many other things. Now we're working on choice. It's going to happen. We're going to take great care of our veterans. That's a very, very important thing. We've done a great job. But I told Admiral Jackson just a little while ago, I said, what do you need this for? This is a vicious group of people that malign, and they do, and I lived through it. We all lived through it. You people are getting record ratings because of it, so congratulations. But I said, what do you need it for? He's an admiral. He's a great leader. And they questioned him about every little thing. As you know, with the success of what will hopefully soon be Secretary of State Pompeo. Everybody was very surprised. I heard 10 minutes before the vote yesterday on committee that he will not be approved at committee, which would be the first time in many, many decades that something like that would have happened with regard to a Secretary of State. Except I spoke to Rand Paul, and Rand Paul has really never let me down. Rand Paul is a good man. And I knew things that nobody else knew. And Rand Paul said, I'm going to change my vote. And he voted, and everybody was surprised. And he actually got an 11-9 vote, because as you know, Johnny Isaacson's vote counts if it isn't the deciding vote. So it was actually 11-9 with, I believe, there was one vote. What would you call that, John?
A present vote.
Not present.
No, present.
Oh, it's called present, okay. So it was 11-9, and that was a terrific thing. But they failed to stop him. So now they say, who's next? Who's next? And this person, Admiral Jackson, Dr. Jackson, is a wonderful man. I said to him, what do you need it for? And as far as experience is concerned, the Veterans Administration, which is approximately 13 million people, is so big, you could run the biggest hospital system in the world, and it's small time compared to the Veterans Administration. So nobody has the experience. What he is a leader and a good man. But I told him, I said, you know what, Doc? You're too fine a person. His son's a top student at Annapolis. He's a high-quality person. I said, what do you need it for? So he'll be it's totally his decision, but he'll be making a decision. But they failed with Mike Pompeo, and that was a big, big hit because they thought they could stop him and embarrass. The Democrats have become obstructionists. That's all they're good at. They're not good at anything else. They have bad ideas. They have bad politics. The one thing they do is obstruct. And that's why I'm waiting for, you would never believe this, I'm waiting for very good people like the ambassador to Germany. Hasn't been approved yet. It's been in there for 11 or 12 months. We have Angela Merkel coming to the United States on Friday. We still don't have our ambassador approved. And at this rate, and many of the papers checked it out yesterday, they actually said I was right. But it would be 9 years before these people are approved. We have hundreds of people in waiting to be approved, and the Democrats are taking 30 hours per person. They're taking the maximum time. They are obstructionists. That's very bad for our country. I said to Dr. Jackson, what do you need it for? So we'll see what happens. I don't want to put a man through who's not a political person. I don't want to put a man through a process like this. It's too ugly and too disgusting. So we'll see what happens. He'll make a decision.
So are you saying, Mr. President, that you will stand behind him?
I would definitely stand behind him. He's a fine man. I'll always stand behind him. I'd let it be his choice. But here's a man who has just been an extraordinary person. His family, extraordinary success, great doctor, great everything. And he has to listen to the abuse that he has to. I wouldn't. If I were him, actually, in many ways, I'd love to be him. But the fact is, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. What does he need it for? To be abused by a bunch of politicians that aren't thinking nicely about our country? I really don't think, personally, he should do it, but it's totally his. I would stand behind him. Totally his decision.
And, Monsieur le Président, if I could direct a question to you as well. You said that you and President Trump came to some agreement on the way forward in Syria. U.S. troops are really at the heart of any solution. How long, President Macron, do you believe U.S. troops need to stay in Syria? Through the defeat of ISIS, or do they need to stay through a stabilization period until an alternative to the Assad government is stood up?
First of all, let me say how proud and honored we are to be part of the international coalition today, alongside with the United States troops, in order to fight against ISIS. We decided to increase our contribution, and we are totally involved in this war against ISIS. And for sure, the very first goal of this intervention and the international coalition on the ground is to finish this work with ISIS, and definitely to finish with our enemies. And our enemies are ISIS and the other terrorist group. Beyond this military presence and beyond our troops on the ground, we will have to build, as I said, peace, i.e. a new inclusive framework in order to be sure that Syrian people will have the opportunity to live in peace. All the different ethnics, all the different religions, all the different groups, and to be sure that there is no hegemony in the region. That's a diplomatic work that we've already started, but we have to finish. It's something different. So I would, if you allow me, I would separate these two issues. We are involved on the ground against ISIS. We will finish this war, and it's not to open a new war or to start a new war. But at the same time, we have to open a new work together. That's what we decided to do in order to build in the overall region a new framework, and especially in Syria. We will assess during the coming weeks and months what we have to do. Because when you are probably much more at the end of a war, you have to adapt to the enemy and the reality on the ground. So we are not here to say, this day we will leave the floor. That's impossible, because it will depend on the reality on the ground. But for sure, what we want to do now is to finish this war with our troops, and we want to fix on the long run the situation to have peace in this region. That's our duty, and it's not just with our troops, it's with our diplomats, our teams, our common work. And obviously with all the allies in the region and people involved.
We've pretty much finished with ISIS, and we're going to be making some big decisions in a very short period of time, but we're working very closely together with France and with the President. Okay? Thank you very much.
Question.
Bonjour messieurs les présidents, Mathieu Coach, BFM TV, une question pour monsieur Macron aujourd'hui. Depuis un an, vous entretenez une relation extrêmement amicale avec le président américain,
friendly relationship with President Trump, quite unusual compared to previous presidents. At the same time, we can see that you do not agree on a number of topics. There are more and more of them. We've seen that openly in the Oval Office earlier on Iran. It seems like the initial deal with Iran will not be able to be saved. So what about this relationship? Can it have some concrete impact on France?
Vous avez parlé tout à l'heure de liens basés sur l'intérêt réciproque. Est-ce que c'est vraiment le cas aujourd'hui?
Is that really the case today?
Oui, totalement. D'abord, je crois que si nous avons cette relation, c'est parce qu'il y a la relation entre nos pays. C'est parce que nous avons une trajectoire qui certes a des différences, mais fait que l'un et l'autre nous venons peut-être hors du champ politique traditionnel, et que nous avons l'un et l'autre compris que nous n'étions pas d'un tempérament à changer d'avis facilement. La conférence de presse qui vient de se tenir aujourd'hui vous donne, je crois, la démonstration et la réponse, en tout cas, à votre question. Sur l'Iran, nous avons un désaccord sur le JCPOA.
Regarding
Je crois
Iran,
que nous sommes en
we
train
have
de
a
le dépasser
disagreement regarding the
par la décision
JCPOA,
que nous
but I
avons prise
think
d'aller vers un
we're
nouvel accord qui
overcoming
permettra
it
de
by
traiter la question en
deciding
profondeur
to
qui était
work
celle du JCPOA,
towards a deal,
c'est-à-dire
an
l'activité
overall
nucléaire,
deal that will
mais de la
enable us
compléter avec trois autres questions qui n'étaient
deal
pas
with the
incluses.
issue of nuclear issue,
Qui est
but
nouveau.
also treat it together with another three
la
issues
décision,
which were not being
en tout
dealt
cas,
with
si
so far.
l'heure que,
So,
ou un peu plus que
should
nous
the
avons passé
decision,
ensemble,
I mean, we've spent
avait eu pour conclusion de
more
dire
than an hour
les
just the
États-Unis
two of us.
sortiront du JCPOA et la France veut le défendre.
And
Alors à ce moment-là, notre
had the
amitié ne servira à
conclusions
rien.
been that the US,
nous
the
avons l'un et
United
l'autre
States of America
su
would walk
évoluer
away from the JCPOA and France would not
prendre en
move,
considération ce qui était
then
important
our
pour
friendship
chacun de nos
would
pays.
be wasted.
Jamais nous n'avions
But
jusqu'ici
it is about
pris une
making
position
sure that we're
commune
each taking
sur la
into
résolution
account
dans la durée
the
de la crise
position and the
syrienne,
interests of
au-delà
our
des sujets militaires. Nous venons de le faire aujourd'hui.
reciprocal countries.
Jamais nous n'avions ensemble pris
It
une
is
position
unprecedented.
pour
We've
dire
never
nous allons aller
before
vers un
taken
nouvel accord
a joint position, a
sur
joint
l'Iran
stance on
qui justement sert
Syria
à fixer
the
tous
way
les
we
sujets de la
did
région.
and
Nous
on
venons de le faire
Iran
aujourd'hui. Je crois
in
qu'il n'y a
favor
pas
of
une
a deal that
relation
will
comme
enable us
celle
to
que nous nourrissons et
cover
surtout un travail très
the
intense
four
entre nos
pillars.
équipes. Il ne peut pas y avoir ce
Intense
résultat.
work between
Mais il y a 15
ourselves
jours, vous
and
en
our
avez vu aussi.
teams.
Vous en avez
Otherwise,
vu
we would
aussi
not
les équipes.
have, we would not be in a position
Il
to
s'est
do
arrivé
as
par le
much.
passé que la France défende des positions qui consistaient à
In
aller
the past,
intervenir contre
sometimes
des armes
France,
chimiques et que
argued
d'Amérique
that
et
it
d'autres
was
alliés
time
l'abandonnent.
to take action against
Ça n'est pas
chemical
ce qui s'est passé.
weapons, and it was
Nous
that
avons pris
France
des
was
positions
not
communes.
followed by its
Nous
allies,
avons
including the United States at the
décidé
time.
ensemble de ce qui
It is
était
not
possible
what
et ce qui
happened
n'était pas
this
possible
time.
dans un cadre
We
légitime sur
decided
le plan
together what
international,
was possible and
comme
what
deux
was
membres
not,
permanents du Conseil de
what was
sécurité.
legitimate
Et nous
within an
avons
international
conduit une
framework as
opération
two members of the
militaire
Security
inédite
Council,
à un
and
niveau
we conducted
d'intégration
an
inédit. Et je
unprecedented
veux
military
ici
intervention
rendre hommage
at an
à nos
unprecedented
militaires et aux
level of
militaires
cooperation. And
britanniques.
please allow me to pay tribute to
Parce
our
que les États-Unis,
troops,
la Grande-Bretagne et la France
to our
ont mené une opération
armies
unique.
and
Nous
to
l'avons
that of
fait
the
de
United
manière
Kingdom because
précise,
we've led a
exacte,
unique
proportionnée, parce que nous l'avons décidé, parce qu'il y a cette
operation,
relation.
a proportionate one, and we were
Donc,
able to do
sur
so
la Syrie,
thanks to
sur
this
l'Iran,
relation that
sur
we
la
mentioned.
crédibilité
So
de
on
la communauté
Syria, Iran, the
internationale
credibility
face à
of the
l'utilisation des
international
armes
community
chimiques,
against
vous
the
avez
use of
eu la
chemical
preuve
weapons. You've
de
seen
ce
it,
que
you've had the evidence
l'amitié entre nos pays et la relation que nous
that
entretenons
showed that the
permet
relationship between
d'obtenir
our
de
two
manière
countries and our
très
friendship
concrète, et ce sont pour moi
enable
des
us
vraies avancées par rapport à la
to
situation
achieve
dans
some
laquelle nous nous
concrete
trouvions, y compris il y a
results.
quelques semaines.
And this is an improvement compared to where we stood a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I think that we have very much in common, I must say. I think many things that certainly most things we agreed with. We can change and we can be flexible. You know, in life you have to be flexible. And as leaders of countries, you have to show flexibility. And I think we actually get along on many of the subjects we discussed today. And I will say France is a great country, and I believe France will be taken to new heights under this president. It's going to be an outstanding president, one of your great presidents, and it's an honor to call you my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.